Knicks are officially back. 5 straight wins, and they're not just winning. They're dominating. They're putting up numbers that don't even seem real. First in points per game, first in field goals made, first in field goals attempted, first in assists, first in plus minus, first in offensive rating, first in net rating, first in assist to turnover ratio, first in player impact estimate, first in points off turnovers, and they've got the best opponent points off turnovers in the league. That's not just a team playing well, that's a team running through the competition. And they're not beating up on weak teams either. They took down the former champs, handled one of the best teams in the West, crushed their rivals, and shut down every opponent in their path. That's not an easy stretch of games, yet they've made it look like a walk in the park. This isn't just a team that got hot for a few games. This is a team that's figured something out. Every stat, every win, every possession. They're proving they're one of the best teams in the league right now. And let's talk about OG, because his impact has been massive. He's not hesitating anymore. He's hunting shots instead of passing them up, and it's making all the difference. Nearly 20 points per game during the streak. And he's not just throwing up shots, he's getting buckets efficiently. When you've got a guy stepping up like that while still locking in on defense, you're gonna win a lot of games. And speaking of offense, the Knicks are lighting up the scoreboard like never before. 408 points over the last 3 games. That's a franchise record. Think about all the great Knicks teams over the years. Not one of them has put up numbers like this. That's how good they've been. It's not just about scoring a lot of points either. It's about how they're doing it. They're 5th in 3-point percentage, meaning they're not just chucking up shots, they're taking and making the right ones. They're also 5th in effective field goal percentage, which tells you they're being smart with their shot selection. Everything about their offense is clicking right now. But here's the thing, it's not just about offense. The defense has been just as impressive. 2nd in steals, 3rd in fewest turnovers, and 1st in opponent points off turnovers. That means they're taking care of the ball, creating chaos on defense, and making sure opponents don't get easy looks. They're making every single possession a nightmare for the other team. And when you got that kind of balance, elite offense and elite defense, you become almost impossible to beat. That's exactly what's happening right now. The Knicks are dictating every game, controlling the tempo, forcing mistakes, and capitalizing on every opportunity. They're not waiting for teams to mess up. They're making them mess up. And let's talk about ball movement, because it's been beautiful. 1st in assists during this stretch, and you can see it in the way they're playing. The ball isn't sticking. Nobody's forcing bad shots, and everyone's getting involved. That kind of selfless basketball is dangerous because it means the defense can't focus on just one guy. Every possession is a new problem for the other team to solve. And it's not just the numbers, it's the way they're playing. The confidence, the energy, the chemistry, it's all there. They're moving with a purpose, playing for each other, and looking like a team that expects to win every single night. That's a mindset that makes a difference. And when you're 1st in net rating over a 5-game stretch, it means you're not just winning games, you're dominating them. They're blowing teams out, controlling every quarter, and making it clear they're the better team from start to finish. This isn't just a team that's having a good week. This is a team that's sending a message to the rest of the league. They're proving they can hang with anybody, and they're doing it in a way that looks sustainable. Every part of their game is clicking at the right time. And the crazy thing is, it's not just one guy carrying the load, it's a total team effort. Every single player is locked in, and that's why they're playing at this level. You don't put up numbers like these unless everybody is buying in. Let's look at the specific games though. We'll start with last night in Denver. The energy in Madison Square Garden was unreal, and the Knicks fed off it all night. Jalen Brunson, he was on another level. 30 points, 15 assists, and he made it all look so easy. The way he controlled the offense, picked apart Denver's defense, and set his teammates up was pure artistry. He dictated the pace, made smart reads, and every time the Nuggets tried to take momentum, he shut it down. The Nuggets had no answer for him. When they tightened up their defense, he found open shooters. When they sagged off, he punished them with mid-range daggers. It was a masterclass in point guard play. And then there was OG. This guy was locked in. 23 points, 4 rebounds, and just an all-around dominant performance. His shooting was lights out, and his defense, elite. Denver tried everything to slow him down, but he just kept making them pay. The way he moved without the ball, found open spots, and knocked down timely shots was huge. He's looked fresher over the last few games, and it's showing in his production. Every time the Knicks needed a bucket, he delivered. Every time Denver thought they had an opening, he shut it down. Josh Hart did what Josh Hart always does. Everything. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals. He was flying all over the court, diving for loose balls, fighting for boards, and making winning plays. His energy was off the charts, and it was contagious. When the game got tight, he turned it up another level. The Knicks needed stops, and he got them. They needed a boost, and he provided it. By the way, if you guys enjoy these deep dives, I'll be posting every day during this season. I'd genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, the game. Karl Anthony Towns had a quiet start, but when it mattered most, he came through. 14 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and a huge fourth quarter block. His battle with Jokic was intense. And even though neither of them put up their usual crazy numbers, Cat stepped up late. He made some clutch buckets, grabbed key rebounds, and gave the Knicks exactly what they needed down the stretch. Bridges had a rough shooting night, but his impact went way beyond the numbers. 13 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. But more importantly, he made life miserable for Jamal Murray. His defense was active and relentless. He forced tough shots, disrupted Denver's rhythm, and never let up. And when the Knicks needed a spark in the third, he was right there to deliver. His late three-pointer helped swing momentum back to New York, and from that point on, they never looked back. And let's talk about Deuce McBride. This guy is fearless. 12 points, 4 assists, and a whole lot of attitude. He came off the bench and gave the Knicks exactly what they needed. A burst of energy, some big shots, and a defensive presence that made a difference. His back-to-back buckets in the fourth were massive, and his connection with OG helped stretch the lead. Every game, he's proving why he belongs in this rotation. The first half was a roller coaster. The Knicks came out flying, hitting their first 8 shots, and jumping out to a huge lead. They were active, aggressive, and completely locked in. Jokic got into foul trouble early, and the Knicks took full advantage. They forced turnovers, ran the floor, and put Denver on their heels. But the Nuggets didn't just roll over. They battled back, dominated the boards, and slowly chipped away. Jamal Murray started heating up, and by the end of the first quarter, the lead was down to 4. The second quarter was a chess match. Mike Malone kept Jokic on the bench for most of it, and the Nuggets still found ways to keep the game close. Russell Westbrook was a problem. He attacked the rim, pushed the pace, and gave Denver a much-needed boost. But the Knicks bench stepped up. Deuce McBride and Precious provided a spark. And just like that, New York was back up by 6. By halftime, the Knicks were ahead 60-54. They had controlled most of the game, but Denver was hanging around. They were winning the rebounding battle, pounding the glass, and getting extra possessions. The Knicks had to tighten up, and in the second half, they did exactly that. The third quarter started rough. Denver came out hot, flipped the game completely, and took the lead. They went on a 20-8 run and built an 8-point advantage. They were dominating the boards, getting second chance points, and for a moment, it looked like they were ready to take over. But then Brunson happened. 18 points in the third, completely torching Denver's defense. The Nuggets had no answer. He was hitting jumpers, driving to the rim, and creating open looks for his teammates. And just like that, the Knicks swung the game back in their favor. Bridges capped off the turnaround with the 3, and New York entered the fourth, up 93-86. And that's when they put the game away. Deuce McBride and OG sparked a quick 10-point burst, pushing the lead back to 9. Denver wasn't done though. They crashed the boards, cleaned up the offensive glass, and cut the lead to 4. It was getting tight, but then the Nova boys took over. Brunson, Bridges, and Hart played like they'd been running together for years. They moved the ball, found the open man, and made the right play every single time. Hart came up huge in crunch time, making plays on both ends. And suddenly, the lead was back to 10 with under 3 minutes left. Jokic tried to get going, but it didn't matter. Every time he made a play, the Knicks had an answer. Towns stepped up, the team defense locked in, and Denver just couldn't close the gap. One of the biggest keys, the Knicks forced 14 turnovers, while only committing 6 themselves. That's how you win games against elite teams. They took care of the ball, made smart decisions, and capitalized on Denver's mistakes. This wasn't just a good win, this was a statement. The Knicks went toe-to-toe with the former champs, took their best shot, and still came out on top. 5 wins in a row, and they're just getting started. But then we can go back a couple days against the Grizzlies. The Knicks weren't just good against Memphis, they were unstoppable. 143-106. That's not just a win, that's domination. From start to finish, they controlled every aspect of this game. They were faster, sharper, more aggressive, and completely locked in. Bridges was an absolute flamethrower. 28 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. He couldn't miss. Whether it was cutting to the hoop, knocking down mid-range jumpers, or pulling up from deep, he did it all. The Grizzlies had no answer for him. He kept finding his spots, moving without the ball, and making Memphis pay every single time. This wasn't just a good game, it was one of his best performances as a Knick. Karl Anthony Towns went to work, 24 points, 11 rebounds, and he made it look easy. The Grizzlies tried to throw everything at him, and it didn't matter. Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, Brandon Clark, none of them could stop him. He bullied them in the paint, stepped out, and hit jumpers, and completely dominated the glass. The way he controlled the interior was huge, especially with the way Memphis was struggling to hold on to the ball. Jalen Brunson was efficient, as always. 20 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, and he barely even had to play in the second half. That's how dominant the Knicks were. He started the game on fire, draining his first 3 shots. And before Memphis even knew what hit them, he had 8 points and an assist. He was in full control, orchestrating the offense, setting up teammates, and making sure the Knicks kept their foot on the gas. And then there was OG. This dude was everywhere. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 6 steals. He completely wrecked Memphis offense, jumping passing lanes, ripping the ball away, and turning defense into easy points. Every time the Grizzlies got a little momentum, he shut it down. He's been on another level defensively, and this was one of his best games yet. Deuce McBride keeps proving why he's such a valuable piece off the bench. 14 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. He brought energy, he brought toughness, and he gave the Knicks a massive boost. When he and Precious were on the floor together, the intensity shot through the roof. The Grizzlies just couldn't keep up. Speaking of Precious, he was a force. 14 points, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. He almost shattered the rim with 2 monster dunks, and his presence on defense made a huge impact. The Knicks bench was incredible, putting up over 50 points and completely overwhelming Memphis in the second half. Cameron Payne got in on the fun too. 11 points, 3 rebounds, and a steal. He and the rest of the second unit put the finishing touches on this blowout, making sure there was no way Memphis could claw back. And then there's Josh Hart, the heartbeat of this team. He only had 4 points, but he grabbed 10 rebounds, dished out 5 assists, and made all the winning plays that don't show up in the box score. He's the guy who keeps everything together, always in the right place at the right time, always making an impact. The first half was all about taking advantage of Memphis's mistake. The Knicks came out moving the ball beautifully, playing with pace, and punishing every single turnover. Jalen Brunson set the tone early, knocking down his first 3 shots and keeping the offense rolling. Memphis had some early fight in them. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 9 points. Desmond Bane added 6, and Brandon Clark was efficient. But D. Morant, he was a complete non-factor. 10 points, 2 assists, and he just never found a rhythm. The Knicks defense locked in on him, forcing him into bad shots, cutting off his passing lanes, and making his night miserable. By the end of the first quarter, the Knicks had a 34-31 lead. Memphis was still hanging around, but they had one major problem: turnover. They were giving the ball away left and right, and the Knicks were making them pay for it. 7 of their 14 first-half turnovers came from Morant and Bane, while New York only coughed it up 6 times. The Knicks bench made a huge impact in the second quarter. Deuce McBride and Precious stepped up in a big way, combining for 17 first-half points and 4 steals. They kept the energy high, kept the pressure on, and helped push the lead to 8 and by halftime. At the break, the Knicks were up 60-52, and the numbers told the story. 10 steals. 10. They were absolutely suffocating Memphis, getting into passing lanes, disrupting every play, and turning defense into offense. Bridges led the way with 14 first-half points, and he was just getting started. Then the second half happened, and the floodgates opened. Bridges came out on fire, leading a 13-point burst to blow the game wide open. Memphis had no answer. The Knicks were running, gunning, and completely overwhelming them. The lead ballooned to 27, and the Grizzlies looked completely lost. By the time the fourth quarter started, the game was already out of reach. The Knicks were up 102-84, and Tom Thibodeau decided to let the bench bring it home. And they did just that. Precious and Cameron Payne knocked down some backbreaker shots, stretching the lead past 30. The Garden was rocking. The crowd was loving every second of it, and the Knicks were putting on a show. It was complete dominance. OG kept adding to his ridiculous steal total, finishing with 6 on the night. The Grizzlies had no answer for him. They finished with 26 turnovers, a disaster for any team, and it was all because of New York's relentless pressure. Josh Hart grabbed 10 rebounds, because of course he did. He's a machine. The Knicks controlled the boards, controlled the pace, and completely shut down Memphis offense. By the final buzzer, it was 143-106. A complete beatdown. This was the kind of win that shows just how deep and dangerous this team really is. They didn't just beat Memphis. They buried them. From start to finish, they were the better team in every way. Defense, ball movement, energy, efficiency. It was all there. And the game before that, the one against Sacramento. That's where this statement started. A 143-120 beatdown over the Kings. Sacramento came in known for their fast pace, high-powered offense, and relentless scoring. But the Knicks, they were even better. They matched the Kings' firepower, played with elite ball movement, and completely took over when it mattered most. OG was absolutely scorching. 33 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block. He was hitting everything. Threes, mid-range jumpers, drives to the rim. it didn't matter. Sacramento threw different defenders at him, and he just kept cooking. This was one of his best scoring performances of the season, and he made sure the Kings felt every bit of it. The first half alone, 20 points. He set the tone, and the Knicks followed his lead. Bridges was right there with putting up 27 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. He was making plays, setting up teammates, and knocking down clutch shots. When the Kings started to close the gap, he kept the offense moving and made sure the Knicks stayed in control. Every time Sacramento thought they had momentum, Bridges had an answer. And Jalen Brunson, business as usual. 25 points, 11 assists, and complete command of the game. He was getting into the lane at will, finding open shooters, and making Sacramento's defense look helpless. The Kings have one of the fastest offenses in the league, but Brunson slowed things down when necessary, controlled the pace, and picked them apart. Josh Hart was an absolute monster. 20 points, 18 rebounds, 11 assists, a triple-double masterpiece. He was everywhere, rebounding, passing, defending, and just making winning plays. Every single loose ball, he got it. Every single hustle play, he was in the middle of it. And in classic Josh Hart fashion, he even took a shot to the face and kept going like nothing happened. He set a new career high with his 22nd double of the season. And the way he capped it off with a buzzer-beater assist to Bridges was perfect. Karl Anthony Towns was a beast in the paint. 18 points, 15 rebounds, and a constant presence inside. He fought for position, controlled the boards, and made life tough for Domantas Sabonis. He might not have had the flashiest night, but he played a huge role in the Knicks, winning the rebounding battle and keeping the Kings from getting easy second-chance points. From the jump, the Knicks were locked in. They came out firing, hitting 6 of their first 11 threes in the opening quarter. Landry Shamet got hot early, drilling 3 triples, and the team was moving the ball beautifully. 4 early assists from Josh Hart, Brunson leading all scorers with 8, and De'Aaron Fox being held scoreless. Yeah, that's how you start a game. By the end of the first, the Knicks were up 38-25, and they looked unstoppable. But Sacramento wasn't going down without a fight. The Kings exploded in the second quarter, led by Malik Monk, who was absolutely unconscious. 23 first-half points, hitting shots from everywhere and bringing Sacramento back into the game. Sabonis was close to a triple-double by halftime, and De'Aaron Fox finally got going. The Knicks' 19-point lead disappeared in a flash as the Kings went on a massive 21-4 run. Suddenly it was a 2-point game, and the momentum had completely shifted. But then Josh Hart did what Josh Hart does, stepped up when it mattered. He fought for an offensive rebound, got fouled on the putback, and converted the 3-point play right before the halftime buzzer. That bucket gave the Knicks a little breathing room, pushing the lead back to 72-67 at the break. It wasn't pretty, but they survived the Kings' run and still had the advantage. The third quarter, a straight-up shootout. Neither team was getting stops, and it felt like every possession ended in points. Bridges, OG, and Brunson kept the offense rolling, but Sacramento wouldn't go away. The frustration started to build, and Hart even picked up his 7th technical foul of the season. But instead of throwing the Knicks off, it actually helped refocus them. Hart was relentless. He kept grabbing rebounds, kept pushing the pace, and kept making plays. His energy was contagious, and it finally started to wear down the Kings. The turning point came late in the quarter when the Knicks finally broke free, thanks to Hart's hustle and Bridges scoring. By the time the buzzer sounded, they were back up by 11, leading 111-100. Then came one of the strangest moments of the season. 2 minutes into the fourth, Bridges stepped up to the free throw line, looked at the rim, and noticed something was off. Turns out, the rim was bent. And just like that, the game was on pause. A 10-minute break, while arena staff scrambled to fix the issue. Players were chatting, stretching, and joking around while the Garden crowd got restless. But one guy saw it as an opportunity. Josh Hart. That extra rest gave him exactly what he needed to power up for the final stretch. When play resumed, he took over, grabbing rebound after rebound, setting up teammates, and making sure there was no chance of another Kings comeback. OG kept pouring in points. Bridges stayed aggressive, and Brunson kept orchestrating. Sacramento had no answers. The Knicks stretched the lead to 15, then 20, and by the final minutes, the game was completely out of reach. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the Knicks had put up 143 points and completely dismantled one of the most explosive offenses in the league. This wasn't just a win, it was a reminder that this team is for real. They took Sacramento's best shot, stayed composed, and dominated when it counted. The Garden is rocking, the chemistry is clicking, and the Knicks are on fire. And even though the second game wasn't against a powerhouse, I still want to look at it. Not every win is going to be pretty, but the Knicks don't care how it looks as long as they get the job done. This one was a grind, a tough, physical battle that went down to the wire. But when the dust settled, the Knicks walked out of Brooklyn with a 99-95 win. It wasn't the offensive explosion of the last few games, but this was all about resilience. They fought through cold shooting, late game struggles, and a Nets team that just wouldn't go away. Karl Anthony Towns, a warrior, 25 points, 16 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. He did it all, and he did it while playing through a sprained thumb that he banged up early in the game. Most guys would have shut it down. Cat, he kept pushing. He led all scorers at halftime, dominated the boards, and made huge plays late. Brooklyn had no answer for him inside, and his presence was massive in a game where every rebound and every defensive stop mattered. OG was rock solid as always. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block. He was efficient, aggressive, and made sure the Knicks had an answer every time Brooklyn started to gain some momentum. His defense was huge, his shot making was timely, and when the Knicks needed someone to step up in the second half, he was ready. Jalen Brunson had an off night by his standards, but he still came through when it counted. 17 points, 4 assists, and a clutch performance in the final minutes. He struggled with double teams, missed some uncharacteristic shots, and even bricked a couple of free throws in the first half. But when the game was on the line, he delivered. Back-to-back buckets in crunch time, a pair of ice-cold free throws to seal it, and another game where he found a way to win. Josh Hart, a rebounding machine, 7 points, 12 boards, 9 assists, and 2 steals. He was everywhere, as usual. When the Knicks needed stops, he got them. When they needed second chance opportunities, he created them. And when the game was hanging in the balance, he was the guy who secured the final rebound to shut the door on Brooklyn. That's what he does, winning plays over and over again. Precious gave them some much needed energy, 11 points, 4 rebounds, and solid minutes off the bench. With Cat dealing with his thumb injury early, Precious stepped in, played with physicality, and made sure the Knicks didn't lose their edge in the paint. He's been a huge boost lately, and in a low scoring, grind it out game like this, his contributions were even more valuable. Bridges had a quieter night offensively, but his impact was still felt. 10 points, 2 assists, and 2 steals. He played tough defense, made timely plays, and even though the numbers weren't flashy, he helped hold Brooklyn's key scorers in check when it mattered. This game started out as a slugfest. The Knicks jumped out to an early 15-5 lead, looking sharp right out of the gate, but then Brooklyn punched right back with a 15-4 run of their own. And from there, it was a back-and-forth battle. The first quarter ended with the Nets up 26-24, and it was clear this was going to be a dogfight. The Knicks had some ugly offensive stretches, especially in the first half. 0 backcourt assists in the first quarter? That's unheard of. But credit Brooklyn, they played tough defense, forced the Knicks into tough shots, and made life difficult. Karl Anthony Towns had to fight through more than just the Nets' defense. He also had to deal with the sprained thumb that he re-aggravated early in the game. It looked bad for a second, but after getting it wrapped, he came back and played like a monster. By halftime, he had 14 points, 8 boards, and a plus 17 rating. The Knicks led 59-51 at the break, but they hadn't taken full control yet. Brooklyn kept hanging around in the third. D'Angelo Russell was picking them apart, racking up assists and keeping the Nets within striking distance. He finished with 23 points and 10 assists, giving the Knicks trouble all night, but then OG stepped up. He took over offensively, getting buckets when the Knicks needed them most, and his defense helped slow down Brooklyn's attack. By the end of the third, the Knicks had stretched their lead to 84-75, but it still didn't feel comfortable. And then came one of the ugliest fourth quarters imaginable. The Knicks came out ice cold. They missed 9 of their first 10 shots, scored just 3 points in the first 9 minutes, and let Brooklyn crawl all the way back. The Nets went on a 13-3 run, took a 1-point lead with 5 minutes left, and suddenly, the game was slipping away. That's when the Knicks locked in. Brunson finally broke the cold spell with back-to-back buckets. Cat muscled in a big-time basket, and Josh Hart kept grabbing every single rebound. The Knicks took back the lead, 97-95, with 23 seconds left. Brooklyn had one last chance. They got the ball to Cam Johnson for a potential go-ahead 3, but the shot bounced high off the rim. And who else but Josh Hart was there to grab it? He secured the rebound, got fouled immediately, and handed the ball to Brunson to finish the job. Jalen stepped to the line, knocked down both free throws, and iced the game, 99-95. It wasn't pretty, but a win is a win. The Knicks found a way to grind it out, fight through offensive struggles, and make the right plays down the stretch. That's the kind of toughness that separates great teams from good ones. And then we can look at the first game from the streak against Atlanta. The Knicks kicked off their win streak with a gritty, hard-fought 119-110 victory over the Hawks, and it had everything. Playoff intensity, tough defense, and a superstar performance from Jalen Brunson. Atlanta came in ready to compete, but the Knicks took their best shot and still walked out with the win. This one wasn't about domination, it was about resilience. The Hawks came out swinging, but the Knicks just wouldn't go away. Jalen Brunson, just another day at the office. 34 points, 6 assists, and complete control of the game. He was aggressive from the jump, attacking Atlanta's defense, picking his spots, and making sure the Knicks kept fighting. 19 of those points came in the first half alone, where he carried the offense through some rough stretches. Atlanta threw double teams at him, tried to force the ball out of his hands, and he still found ways to get buckets. And when the Hawks started mounting a late comeback, he stayed poised, drew a crucial charge, and knocked down big shots to seal the game. Bridges was just as important. 26 points, 4 rebounds, and a ridiculously efficient 12 of 17 from the field. He had the hot hand in the second half, and the Knicks made sure to take full advantage. He was knocking down mid-range jumpers, finishing at the rim, and playing with the kind of confidence that makes him such a dangerous scorer. Every time the Hawks tried to cut into the lead, Bridges had an answer. Josh Hart, you already know. 14 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and about 1,000 hustle plays. He was everywhere, diving for loose balls, crashing the glass, and making winning plays all game long. When the Knicks needed energy, he provided it. When they needed a big stop, he made it happen. And when they needed someone to close out possessions, he was grabbing rebound after rebound. 5 Josh Harts? This team wouldn't just win, it would never lose. Karl Anthony Towns was a playmaker in this one. 13 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and even with that sprained thumb, he was setting up teammates, controlling the boards, and making sure the Knicks didn't lose their edge inside. He didn't have to take over as a scorer, but his passing was key to breaking down Atlanta's defense, especially in the fourth quarter, when the Knicks needed smart possessions. Cameron Payne came off the bench and made a huge impact. 10 points, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a clutch 4-point play in the fourth that gave the Knicks the momentum they needed to close things out. He played limited minutes, but when he was on the floor, he was a spark plug. This game didn't start pretty. Atlanta came out firing, making their first 3 triples and building a double-digit lead early. The Hawks are not an elite 3-point shooting team, but they couldn't miss in the opening stretch. Quinn Snyder switched up his starting lineup, inserting Onyeka Okongwu at center, and it paid off as the Hawks controlled the paint early. The Knicks' defense eventually tightened, and the crowd erupted when Bridges forced a Trae Young shot clock violation. But offensively, they were still struggling to find a rhythm. That changed when the bench came in. Cat led a unit with Payne, Deuce McBride, Landry Shamet, and Precious, and they immediately put together an 8-3 run to cut the deficit. By the end of the first quarter, the Knicks were only down 1. The second quarter was a roller coaster. Deuce opened it up by drilling a 3 to give the Knicks their first lead. From there, Thibodeau slowly worked his starters back in, and with Payne still running the offense, they built a 6-point advantage. But the moment Josh Hart subbed back in, things got shaky. The Knicks lost their rhythm. Atlanta went on a 14-point turnaround, and suddenly, the Hawks were back in control. Trae Young was cooking. He had 18 first-half points, drilling 5 of 6 from deep, and he was making the Knicks pay for every defensive lapse. By halftime, the Hawks were up 62-54. The Knicks had been forcing turnover, 14 from Atlanta in the first half, but they were struggling to convert. And then there was the free throw disparity. The Hawks shot 17 first-half free throws. The Knicks, just 4. They weren't getting calls, they weren't capitalizing on mistakes, and they needed to respond. And that's exactly what they did. They came out of the locker room on a mission, exploding for a 14-4 run to take the lead. Bridges caught fire, scoring from everywhere and fueling the comeback. The Knicks kept applying pressure, but Atlanta kept hanging around. DeAndre Hunter and Young kept finding ways to score, and it felt like every time the Knicks pulled ahead, the Hawks answered. That's when Josh Hart took over. He was grabbing every loose ball, setting up teammates, and bringing the intensity the team needed to finally gain some separation. He finished with 14 points, 9 boards, and 5 assists. But it was the energy that made the biggest difference. New York won the third quarter 40-27, flipping the game in their favor. Brunson drilled a deep 3 late in the quarter to push the lead to 8, their biggest advantage of the game. But just when it seemed like they were in control, Atlanta fought back again. A steal, a couple of quick buckets, and suddenly it was a 5-point game heading into the fourth. The Hawks kept pushing early in the final frame. 5 straight points from Hunter tied it up, and momentum started to swing again. But Thibs had an answer. More Cam Payne. Payne's 4-point play was massive, giving the Knicks a little breathing room. Then Brunson took over. He drew a charge, started attacking Dyson Daniels, and made sure the Hawks had no path to a comeback. Towns put the finishing touches on it with some brilliant passing, setting up key baskets to keep the Knicks in control. His stat line, 13 points, 9 boards, and 7 assists, might not jump off the page, but he made huge plays in crunch time, and that's exactly what they needed from him. OG played tough defense all night, grabbing 8 boards and making life tough for Atlanta's shooters. He wasn't as involved offensively, only 4 shot attempts, but his presence on the defensive end helped slow the Hawks down when it mattered most. Brunson sealed the game at the free throw line, and the Knicks walked out with a 119-110 win. It wasn't their cleanest game. They had rough offensive stretches, questionable officiating, and plenty of moments where it felt like the Hawks were about to take over. But every time they needed a response, they had one. That's what good teams do. Overall, though, the Knicks have been awesome. The Knicks aren't just good this year, they're legitimate contenders. The Eastern Conference is wide open, and while there's plenty of competition, no team has looked as balanced, as tough, and as built for playoff success as New York. The Celtics are struggling, the Cavs are great, but have their usual postseason inconsistencies. And while other teams might have firepower, none of them have the combination of star talent, depth, defense, and chemistry that the Knicks do. This isn't just a fun regular season team. This is a squad built to make a deep run. At the center of it all, Jalen Brunson. At this point, it's not even a debate. He's one of the best players in the league. Some might argue top 10, but the way he's played this year, he's got a case for top 5. He's not just putting up numbers. He's taking over games, dictating pace, and closing out wins like a true superstar. Every night, he's the guy setting the tone, breaking down defenses, and making sure the Knicks stay in control. He's efficient, he's clutch, and he's the kind of leader you can build a championship team around. The best part, he's only getting better. When the game slows down in the playoffs and every possession matters, there might not be a more valuable player in the league than Brunson. He's that good. And then there's Karl-Anthony Towns. For years, people questioned whether he could be the second option on a contender. And this season, he's answering with an emphatic yes. He's been incredible, not just as a scorer, but as a rebounder, a playmaker, and a presence inside. He's stretching the floor, punishing mismatches, and giving the Knicks an interior presence that few teams can match. And when he and Brunson are both rolling, good luck stopping them. The chemistry they've built has been unreal, and it's making the Knicks offense one of the most dangerous in the league. But what really makes this team special is its versatility. They don't just rely on 1 or 2 guys, they've got a lineup stacked with players who can take over a game at any moment. When OG and Bridges have good games on the same night, the Knicks are virtually unstoppable. It's one thing to have scorers, but it's another thing to have elite, two-way wings who can lock down the opposing team's best players while also lighting it up offensively. That's what makes the Knicks different. OG and Bridges can take turns shutting down stars, hitting big shots, and swinging games with their defense alone. If one of them gets hot, it's tough for any team to keep up. If both of them do, it's over. That's the level of dominance they bring. And then there's Josh Hart, the heart and soul of this team. Every contender needs a guy who does the dirty work, who makes the hustle plays, who impacts winning in ways that don't always show up in the box score. Hart does all of that and more. He's been so good this season that he's legitimately a borderline all-star. His rebounding as a guard, elite. His passing, underrated. His defense, relentless. He's not just a role player, he's a game changer. He's the kind of guy every team wishes they had, and the Knicks are lucky to have him. When things get tough in the playoffs, when every possession is a battle, Hart is going to be the difference maker. What makes the Knicks so dangerous is their ability to beat teams in different ways. Some nights, they win with elite shot making and offensive execution. Other nights, it's their defense, shutting teams down. They can play fast, they can slow the game down, and they can adapt to whatever the situation calls for. That's what makes them such a nightmare matchup. Most teams have a formula. They need things to go a certain way to win. The Knicks, they can beat you in a variety of ways. If Brunson has an off night, Towns can step up. If the offense isn't clicking, their defense can suffocate opponents. If it turns into a grinded out game, they've got the toughness and rebounding to win ugly, and they've proven it against the best teams. They've beaten elite competition, shown they can go toe-to-toe with anyone, and done it consistently. This isn't just a team getting hot for a stretch. This is who they are. They've been battle-tested. They've answered every challenge, and they've shown they're ready for the moment. With the way the East is shaping up, there's no reason to think the Knicks can't make a serious run. Boston, for all their talent, has struggled with consistency. Cleveland looks great, but their playoff history is shaky. Milwaukee has experience, but they've been vulnerable. There's no juggernaut standing in the way. The Knicks don't just belong in the conversation, they might be the best equipped team to come out of the East. They've got the star power with Brunson and Towns. They've got the elite wing depth with Bridges and OG. They've got the hustle and glue guys with Hart and Precious. They've got the depth, the coaching, the defense, the shot making, and the toughness. They check every single box, and they're not done. This isn't a team that's peaked too early. They're still getting better, still building chemistry, still figuring out ways to improve. That's the scary part. The Knicks are already one of the best teams in the league, and they haven't even reached their full potential yet. This team is for real. This isn't just a good season, it's the start of something special. The Knicks have arrived, and the rest of the league better be ready, because this year, the Knicks aren't just trying to make noise in the playoffs. They're trying to win the whole thing, and with the way they're playing, who's gonna stop them? If you guys enjoyed this, I'll be posting every day during this season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.